What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist here with
Gersh1.
And today we're back at it, answering more questions from you guys, the subscribers, the viewers, in another episode of For the Greater.
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put question in front of your question because we get to those questions first. And this question comes from Musica Player. He asks, how can I save money in Warhammer 40K?
That is an amazing question because this hobby is one of the more expensive hobbies, really.
Yeah.
Because when you think about like video games and sports, it's like, yeah, you do got to shell out to get the console, the gear and whatnot. But with this game, you need a lot. And it's very expensive because like we've been playing since what, 5th grade?
Yeah. So 3rd edition or 4th edition?
Yeah. And like the prices have just been skyrocketing out of control.
And you know what? I'm going to counter on that topic of like, is it as expensive as like Magic the Gathering, HeroClix, or another thing? But we'll answer the big question of how do you save money. For us playing 40K, the biggest way to save money is to buy not from Games Workshop, but from third-party retailers. So your local hobby shop usually has some type of sale. Especially nowadays, it just seems that so many hobby shops have like a crazy 50% off on Warhammer 40K or 30% off or buy two, and so they got deals.
Yeah, and not just that, but certain game stores actually have like a garage sale type thing.
Yeah,
and like you can get other people's like secondhand armies fully painted and done at a discount price.
So really rely on your community, your local community, to get cheaper models. There's also always like Facebook and
the marketplace, Craigslist, eBay.
Yeah, so those are really good places to get minis, but just remember that they're probably going to be built. But that's another thing too. So if you want 40K to be cheaper, understand that you're not going to buy new on sprue. Buy the models that are already built, and then maybe learn to kit bash or learn to kind of like strip paint and then do all that kind of stuff. So I think, what's the saying? You can't be poor and stupid or something like that.
I thought you were going to say one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Well, that too, right? Like if you have some looters, that's trash. But to other people, it's a treasure.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah. So the community is really helpful. The other one is reprinting or reprinted minis. Mm-hmm. We just recently started talking about maybe buying from, what is it, War Game Table or something like that?
I believe that's what it's called, yeah.
It's one of those like super sketchy websites that you can buy a Titan for like, I don't know, a nickel. No, it's probably like you can buy a Titan for like, I don't know, $100, where it's usually on Forge World. Well, Forge World's not a thing, but like it's usually like super expensive. We're gonna try it out, but it's one of those things where you are taking a risk.
Yeah.
You have to make the payment through PayPal, and then you have to wait at least 2 months to get the unit. Mm-hmm. But if you're a player that has dreams of starting another army and you're okay with waiting, do it.
Yeah. Etsy has these types of things, although they're slightly tweaked. So like a Space Marine will look like a Space Marine at a distance, but once you actually look at the details, it's like, oh no, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Even though with Etsy, a lot of the models don't fit the aesthetic of the armies that you play.
Right.
I feel like that's the case for Space Marines, the Tau, Necrons. The only ones that are kind of good to buy on Etsy, the only factions to buy on Etsy is Orcs, because they're just so, like, Orcs are Orcs. You can kit bash them, and then Chaos.
Yeah, with Chaos, I think it's that same thing with the Orcs, where like there's so many bits and pieces that just like, even though it looks off, it still fits because it's a whole like Chaos mutation type thing.
Yeah, and they're demons too. Like for me, I wanted to start Thousand Suns, and I didn't want to buy the Warp Beast, I think it's called.
Mutilex Warp Beast?
Yeah,
Vortex Beast, yeah.
So then I was like, I'm going to go on Etsy and see what I can find. Found this really awesome model that I liked even better than the Games Workshop one. Ordered it, and yeah, I can play it, and it's a good swap. The beast itself doesn't even look like it belongs in 40K. It looks more like Age of Sigmar, so it fits perfectly. But yeah, Etsy's a good place to save money.
Yeah, we've been kind of like walking around the bush on this one, but proxying is probably another way of saving money. If you know of another like retailer or another company that makes minis, you could go ahead and say, hey, gaming group, hey, friends, is it cool if I use this demon as Angron, or is it cool if I use this thing as that? As long as they're okay with it, yeah, why not proxy it and save yourself a couple bucks?
Yeah, and a lot of the times in those situations, the homebrew element of Warhammer 40K allows you to do that. So, for example, like let's say you're gonna get Gilliman, but your chapter actually has a Lost Primarch as its Primarch. You can play Gilliman rules and have a different model. So then, yes, you're proxying Gilliman, but in reality, in your lore and in your fluff, you are playing a completely different character with Gilliman rules.
Right. And I think that's the best way of going at it. Because if you make your own rules, that can go really bad really quick. It could either be too overpowered or too underpowered. The point system, that's also another thing. If you're going to play a Primarch and it's going to be 300 points, it better be worth 300 points. Not like, oh, I'm paying 300 points for a Primarch, it should be really good. But then the stats on that Primarch make it to be like, you're fighting a Titan. Yeah, the whole min-maxing and the rules, that can really throw things off. So whenever you are proxying, definitely use rules that already have a model to it and just, again, proxy.
Yeah, and you save money. Just be creative, and then there's no reason for you to feel like Games Workshop or that 40K is too expensive.
Yeah.
Another way to save money is, well, I guess, yeah, we've covered the big bases, right?
One that like a lot of people kind of tend to forget is that you can always go to your local GW store, and they usually have paints that you can just use.
True.
So, I mean, obviously you are probably going to have to like buy something when you're there. So buy the kit that you're going to play and just know that like, hey, I should finish painting this guy in the store. That way I don't have to spend money on pots, on paints, on brushes, etc.
Yeah, and usually the managers are cool for you to hang out with them and stuff like that. And it's part of you building the community within like your local spot.
Right.
But yeah, I want to go back to the whole comment of, is Games Workshop or is Warhammer 40K as expensive as other hobbies? I think because the upfront value of a box of like, let's say infantry is like so expensive, like $60. But then when you look at Magic,
well, here's the thing: with Magic, you can pay $60 and play a game right away.
Yeah.
With 40K, you can't.
No, but at the same time, it's like Games Workshop doesn't have blocks, whereas Magic does. Because I remember when we used to play Magic, you wanted the new cards, you wanted the new block, you wanted the new stuff. So then you would go and you would buy, what are they called? The one that comes with 9 boosters or whatever.
Oh, like the
brick.
They used to be called fat packs. I think they're just called like something else.
Fat packs are expensive.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that like every other month, where you're only buying one model and then sitting on it for a while in 40K, it kind of like, sure, Games Workshop up front is more expensive, but in the long run, if you really like tally up how much you've spent on your Magic cards, it's probably up there. Yeah. Especially if you're buying individuals and you're not just playing whatever you pull, because some of those cards get expensive.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's not like in 40K where, like, let's say, for example, the Ludas are good this edition. They're not going to raise the price on a box of Ludas just because they're the meta.
Right.
The prices are going to stay the same until everything moves up accordingly.
Yeah. So I do think that there is an argument to be had of, like, is Games Workshop or is 40K as expensive as Magic? Is it as expensive as like other hobbies? And the answer is like, maybe not. Maybe they're up there just because of how much you get from buying a box too.
Right.
And we kind of already touched on this, but another way to save money is not buying Games Workshop accessories.
True, because trying to buy a tape measure at GW, I could buy like 3 of those somewhere else.
Yeah, or you could just go to the dollar store and
exactly
get it for that. We have our docile creature who's on this channel. His dumbass bought a water tin.
Oh yeah, a cup.
A cup.
He bought a $20 cup.
Where you could just get a red Solo cup for like, a couple cents.
You could get like 20 of those for the same price he paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not to shame docile creature or anything, but because I don't even think he bought it. It was a gift.
True.
But it's one of those things where, like, if you are at the Games Workshop store and you see paintbrushes and all that kind of stuff for sale, go to Michael's, go to Hobby Lobby, go to a craft store. You can get stuff way cheaper. today we were actually talking about green stuff and how green stuff, if you're not using it to sculpt, it's expensive, right? It's like $7 for like a little thing.
Yeah.
But if you're not using it to sculpt, you could just get epoxy putty that like you can get at a hardware store. It's $7 for a big old thing, and then you can use it the entire year to like
fill in gaps, use it as like adhesives, magnetizing filler, etc.
Yeah, so you have to be creative. As long as you're creative, Games Workshop or Warhammer 40K is not as expensive.
Right. And if you do want to stick to 40K, you're like 100% want to support the company. You're not going to look outside. Definitely go with the boxes. Start collecting Combat Patrol, whatever it is they're calling it, holiday bundles. That's definitely the way to save because you're probably going to get a free HQ once you add up the prices individually.
Right, yeah. And then just so that we have another question, the next question comes from the big one. Aren't athletes supposed to be good looking? If so, how do you guys explain Larry Bird?
Damn, a lot of shade on Larry Bird. Well, for one, I feel like most athletes kind of have to be in shape and they have to be out in public. So they probably have that type of like attitude where they're confident because they want to do good and they probably do good. And they have that aura, that I'm him attitude. So it's like confidence goes a long way, even if you're not the prettiest guy like Larry Bird.
Yeah, I agree. And then when we look at Warhammer 40K in terms of good looking, because you made me think of like how athletes are seen as like these big, awesome people. Mm-hmm. The Primarchs were genetically made to be good looking to human eyes.
Yeah.
So all of them, even the ugly ones like Perturabo, was good looking and very charismatic. So it's different in that.
Yeah, I think it's either the first or the second. It might even be the third Horus Heresy book. There's like a human looking at Loken, who's the Luna Wolf, and he's taking his armor off, and she's just like, wow, this guy's good looking. Look at his muscles. And then she's like, what I would give if you weren't a giant that could kill me in a snap of a wrist.
Yeah, I bet she likes that.
Probably.
You know what's funny? With 40K, like, it was created for kids, like boys, to play. Mm-hmm. So these Space Marines were designed to be like, this is what I aspire to be kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, like, growing up, did you feel that? Like, did you want to be a Space Marine?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Neither did I.
I picture, whenever I think of a Space Marine, I think of like Arnold when he was like bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just too much muscle, man.
Yeah, but you don't like. Yeah, I don't ever see myself wanting to be like that. When I was younger, I don't think I ever thought about it. I did want to think of myself as an orc war boss though. I always wanted to be like just a fucking giant mechanized thing, like the old God school where his hands were like this.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to be that. But anyways, those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down below. If you enjoy hanging out with us, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll talk tomorrow.
That's right. Let us know what 40K creature or character you would be in the comments. And as always, it's been the Sound Alchemist here with
Gershwan.
And we are out.
Always used to put my freedom first, and then